Now, next up, there's a very interesting place called Draw Space, an independent artist-run space in Newtown, described as Sydney's first independent contemporary drawing space, which offers an opportunity for artists to engage in new drawing research and showcase innovative works. A new group show called Detail opens on the 7th of March. This showcases apparently the complex and intricate world of detailed drawings, and it focuses on the time, the labour and beauty involved. And it will present a diverse collection of drawings from 11 or 12 maybe established and emerging artists representing different styles, techniques and subject matter. So we have in the studio two of the artists featured in the exhibition, Yvonne East and Eva Nolan. So welcome to the show.
Hi, Paula. Lovely to be here.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Yeah, so tell us, what is the goal of this exhibition? Yvonne, do you want to start?
Well, I'm talking on behalf of the wonderful Jeremy Smith, who's he's the curator.
I believe he's very busy at the moment, so he's caught up with...
He's got another opening tomorrow, Qtopia. So, he's busy rushing around. So he's gathered together an extraordinary collection of artists who are completely committed and devoted to this idea of detail. I think anyone who comes along to see the exhibition will be blown away. I have to say, I'm actually blown away to be included in the company of my fellow artists. They're extraordinary. I'm totally girl fanning over them. They're wonderful. So it's all about the intricacy and the time spent on producing these incredible works.
And the detail, I suppose, because it's called Detail, isn't it? This exhibition or something?
Yeah. Well, this is the extraordinary thing with drawing, in that it takes a lot of time, and time is the one thing that we can't buy. It's probably our most precious resource that we have. So when you have an artist who sits there for hours, days, possibly weeks with some of these works, that time, that investment actually goes into the surface of the drawing. So it's almost like a time capsule. And I think when we look at drawings like that, we can't help but be intrigued and kind of go, what has inspired this person to sit here for this amount of time and complete this drawing?
And so, Eva, what do you think, what does drawing detail communicate?
Well, I'll speak for myself so that I don't misrepresent anyone else in the team, but we all come at detail from very different approaches and methods. But for me personally, detail is this sort of escapism. It opens up this space for meditation and this kind of cathartic practice of just the rest of the world slips away and you can just become completely absorbed in the work that you're doing. I draw using a magnifying glass, so I'm just staring through a magnifying glass for hours, days, weeks, months on end sometimes, and I find that everything else kind of falls away and I'm able to just be completely absorbed in the feathers of a tawny frog mouth or the sort of like little globules on a wandering anemone. Like you just become completely lost. Yeah.
It sounds almost meditative.
It is, very much so.
Yeah. And do you use very fine pencils? What sort of pencils?
Yes, so just regular graphite pencils, but I tend to use the very hard end of the spectrum. There's sort of your H and your Bs, your kind of hard graphite and your soft graphite. I use the kind of 6H down, more your kind of technical drawing pencils, and just lots of sharpening, so much sharpening.
I imagine so. So one work, how many hours would it take you?
So the two pieces that I have in this show, they're both only small, 20 centimetres, but they take 2 to 3 weeks, of very intensive labour.
When you say weeks, how many hours?
70, 80.
Wow, that's a lot for
a very small piece. Yes.
Amazing. So and back to you, Yvonne. What's the importance of drawing? There's always paintings, there's all sorts of other things, but drawing has kept its interest. So why is it so valuable?
I'll tell you what, you've asked a dangerous question, because I'm a drawing instructor, so I teach down at UNSW and I also teach up at Willoughby Arts Centre. So shout out to people up at Willoughby.
Okay.
Drawing is really the foundation of a lot of creative visual thinking. So it's one thing to have an idea in your head, and a lot of people have this. They go, I've got this great idea for a painting or a drawing or a sculpture, but it's not real yet. It just exists in your brain, kind of separate from the world. But through drawing, you actually get to think through ideas in a really meaningful way, and it's kind of getting those thoughts and even the way that you perceive the world can be revealed through that practice of drawing and that very careful looking and examining of the world around you, and then having to translate it.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've heard it sort of described as an activity as much as a medium, then, drawing.
Oh, yes, it's a very physical medium as well. And often people kind of say, like, how do you sustain, like with Eva as well, like 2 or 3 weeks sitting at a desk? It's that thing of, and I do quite large drawings as well. And people go, how do you sustain the energy? And it's like, we literally go to the gym and work out and make sure that, we've got good spine health and all of that, roll your shoulders every hour and things like that. It's a very, very, it's a very much an embodied medium, which I think Draw Space, as this wonderful platform for contemporary drawing, it has this ability to really showcase how drawing can have all of these different meanings. Like, has a very kind of sort of multiple meanings in the way that people express themselves.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because I read how it's Draw Space wants to broaden the perception of drawing and elevate its significance. That's an important part.
Yeah, and the assumption where people think, they go, oh yeah, I can draw, but when I have students who come into class and I really get them to question their perception and because our brains make a lot of shortcuts a lot of the time, we're sort of just big meaty lumps wandering around the world, our brains have to make a lot of very quick assumptions to move between and around objects, and as soon as you sit down and have to really examine what is this perceptual process, a lot of things get revealed which can be quite unnerving. This is why we fall for optical illusions and things like that, because it's revealing, oh, hang on, how is my brain actually working?
Right.
Which, can be confronting, but it's also a lot of fun too.
Yes, because it seems like drawing has opposite characteristics from quickness to labour-intensive work, like Yvonne was saying. And of course the attention to detail we were covering. So how many artists are taking part, and what range of styles do they cover? Yeah,
so there's a really broad range of styles. There are some absolutely fantastic artists, a lot of Australian artists. Some that I've admired for like a very, very long time. There's Catherine O'Donnell, who, Eva, I don't know if you're a fan of Catherine O'Donnell's work.
How could I not be?
Oh, my goodness. And someone actually said to me the other day, they said, are you in a show with Catherine O'Donnell? And I said, yes, I am. So Catherine O'Donnell, she does these incredibly, I'd say, photorealistic images of sides of buildings. The famous Sirius building that's near the Harbour Bridge. She did this beautiful, beautiful drawing of that building before they've started doing all that crazy stuff to it. But of like sunlight hitting window frames, it's very kind of gentle work, but her technique is just I'd have to say she'd probably be the best charcoal technician in terms of realism in Australia. She's just extraordinary. I know that's a big call. Eva's nodding, by the way.
She uses charcoal though to get that detail.
She uses charcoal and pencil, and she's just she's wonderful, and also a very unassuming person. Walking down the street, and it's like she just makes these extraordinary works of art. So, and we've also got Mr. Susumu Takashima as well. So he's a Japanese artist who does these gorgeous gold point on paper, very kind of intricate, a little more abstract. So it's not all realism. I think that's the thing. When people think detail, they think immediately it has to be realism, but that's not the case. We do have some artists doing kind of more abstract work that, is also very much based in detail. But there's Jeremy's done a fantastic job in curating this in terms of the breadth and the quality of artists involved.
And what sort of work does Jeremy do?
Jeremy, how would you describe Jeremy's work, Eva?
I'm a huge fan of Jeremy's work, but incredibly detailed, intricate. He works a lot with maps and cartography and kind of urban mapping.
Is it large scale or smaller?
Very large scale, but the detail is extraordinarily tiny. And I think I spend a lot of time on my drawings, but I think Jeremy's must be a whole nother level that I don't know how he does it, and often lots of colour as well, using textures and bringing bold colours into things as well as more monographic work.
That's interesting. So I was going to ask you about the range of styles, and you've already touched on a few of them. Are other styles that we haven't covered yet?
I'm trying to think about that. It'll be great when we actually get to see all the works together.
Yes, yeah. Tio's work, Tio Trelaw, he does these wonderful drawings that are part figurative, part geometric. I'm trying to describe them without having a picture in front of me.
I look at Trio's work, I kind of go through an existential crisis because he's got this kind of representation but this wonderful abstraction as well that sits side by side. So, they kind of sit in this really interesting kind of, I don't want to use a pun, but like a grey area. They literally sit in this grey area.
That would be a great sort of title for a drawing.
The grey area.
The grey area. It would be.
Next one. And so what do each of you value in drawing?
For me, and this is something I like to teach my students as well, is that drawing is a form of knowledge, and I think that doesn't come across a lot of the times. People think that drawing is just this purely representational or illustrative tool, and Yvonne touched on it before, but drawing is actually a way of processing the world around us. And for me as well, I notice this real sense of intimacy that develops with the subjects that I've drawn. And if I see a critter in the wild that I've drawn, there's this instant kind of connection where I feel like I just know that species a little bit better. Or so it's this way of developing a kind of a relationship with the world around you and really thinking through some of those processes.
What about you?
Well, I have a sort of a life drawing background, so very much in that immediacy and engagement. And I think, just like Eva was saying as well, that it's a knowledge building, but it's not just a knowledge building in terms of in your brain, but it's a knowledge building in your body and that kind of relationship that you can have to the world around you, but particularly with other people's body in a life drawing situation where it develops this empathy with what you're looking at. And being able to translate through that, and then also with the marks that are left behind. When we're talking about drawings, particularly gestural drawings, we look at things like, movement and balance and flow and rhythm. And these are words that we also use to describe dancing, which is a very embodied experience. So for me personally, because I have a dance background as well, I find that it's really that embodied kind of action of drawing. It's the mind and the body kind of really do come together when you're drawing.
Yeah, so it's far more than just a sketch, as some people would say, what I think drawing was. So it's rather, at times, relaxing or physically involved in experience. Well, I was going to ask you to describe your practice, but you've sort of talked about it already. So how long have you each been drawing for?
That's a good question.
Has your style changed over that period?
It's definitely changed. I'd probably mark the beginning of my sort of professional foray into drawing probably when I finished my HSC year back in 2011, where I actually started off drawing very large scale. I was drawing kind of 1.82 metre high. Still quite sort of intricate, but just all blown up to a much larger scale. And I think detail for me is that main kind of crux of my practice that I've just focused in on more and more as I've been developing, and now my drawings have just become smaller and smaller, and I actually have this recurring nightmare that they'll get so small that they'll just disappear. So that's something that haunts me. But
they've got that thing on the grain of a rice grain.
Yes, yeah.
I wonder how small it gets. Well, it sounds amazing, the detail. What about you, Yvonne? How's your how long have you been drawing for, and has it changed? Your style evolved?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, because I'm also a painter. So there's a lot of painters. So drawing and painting, they're very kind of slippery terms that tend to kind of hook together quite closely. Yeah. So I can actually describe my moment when I kind of discovered, I want to say painting, but it was really a material kind of moment. So what had happened was, when I was younger, like I said, I have a dance background, but in the 90s, I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome. And in the 90s as well, it was that thing of like, you're just depressed. And I was like, well, of course I'm depressed. I can't do anything. I used to go from dancing 50 hours a week, and now I can't do anything. So it was actually a wonderful friend bought, because I'd been interested in art, but I'd never worked with oil paint before, and they bought me a little oil painting set, and they brought it home because I was sort of stuck at home. It's like, what am I going to do? And I remember the moment I first started using those oil paints, they were so buttery, and I just fell in love immediately with that particular medium. And then from there, this whole world, so I kind of shifted from very much a dance focus into a material focus of using different materials and in a kind of an expressive way. And I think that's the kind of birthplace of drawing for me, was that introduction to oil paint. So I've got a lot to owe to that very dear person, dear friend, who gave me my very first oil paints. But I was 19 years old, so that's when it happened. Yeah.
And so then, how did you segue or get into drawing from the painting, or you were already started drawing?
Yeah, so I'd already been drawing, and I drawed, I don't know about you, Ava, but I was always drawing as a kid, and I was always fascinated by drawings. And I remember once when I was, I think I was 5 years old, and I was, in my first year in school, and they had to ring up my parents because they wanted me to stop drawing. And I had started crying in the class, and they're like, stop drawing. I was so proud of my drawing. But growing up, because I grew up in a regional area, so art as a career wasn't really an option. I didn't know it was a thing, so I'd always sort of just done it as a hobby. And it was really only until that experience with oil paints, and then I thought, maybe I should do a degree. And then I did my visual arts degree, and then of course my whole world changed after that, because when you do a visual arts degree, you meet so many new people, and that's when I kind of went, this is actually an environment. It's a thing. And a tribe. And it was the first time I had ever done life drawing, which immediately I remember very clearly the first time I ever did life drawing, and I just went, wow, this is amazing. This is so much fun.
Drawing at school that got you into trouble? What sort of things had you been drawing?
I wasn't... It's not what I was drawing that got me into trouble. It's just that I didn't want to do anything else. Yeah. So they were just not doing
kids in the class or landscapes.
Yeah, so I often say that my first language, so rather than being English, I think my first language is actually visual. Yeah. And a lot of visual artists are like that. We think visually and we think spatially, and then the words tend to come later. But yeah, that's probably the best way of explaining it. It's like, it's my first language. It's just understanding the world through in a visual way.
Right. And also, I was reading how this drawing space, it helps with drawing research. That was referenced. What's drawing research?
Well, we've got a wonderful PhD candidate with us at the moment. Ava's doing her PhD, and Jeremy, the curator, he's also currently doing his PhD as well, into the sociological mapping that he does in his work. So, Ava, I think you're best prepared to talk about the research side of it. And Ava's also on the board of Draw Space as well. There's, I think, 11 fabulous artists who are on the board.
There are.
Okay. So drawing research. Yeah, tell us what that means.
Yeah, I can understand how that's a sort of foreign concept to a lot of people, and I think it sort of comes back as well to that using drawing as a knowledge-making tool. I specifically look very much at natural history and drawing's role as a scientific tool for documenting different species following taxonomies. So some of my personal drawing research is looking at how drawing's role in the way that we've been able to categorise and separate different organisms. But drawing is a tool that can be used to kind of think through I would go as far as to say any kind of problem that we're facing. I think in our current state at the moment, with the sort of environmental crisis and social issues, humanity issues, I think drawing is a tool that can help really think through some of these.
And it helps us categorise ideas. It helps us categorise concepts about things. So, for example, if you think of something like a chair, and you kind of go, okay, well, a chair has, a back and four legs and a seat. But there's lots of different categories of chairs that we can kind of hold in our memory and, to recognise a chair. But when you actually have to draw something, you look at it in almost like a scientific way. And when you're, particularly with observational drawing, when you're looking at a chair, you go, actually, from this viewpoint, the legs are not all the same length. They're kind of, they're sitting at different things. So it's a way of critically looking at the world and trying to look at something in a new way and not kind of go back to that automatic category that we've already established in our brain or in our memory.
Well, that's good. And So you've got this group show called Detail, but what's next for each of you? What happens after the show?
Gosh, so for me, I have about 18 months left of my PhD candidature at UNSW Art and Design. So, right.
Yes,
I'm sort of halfway through my thesis. So
what's that about?
So I'm looking at natural history and also multi-species relationships, and I'm really interested in this idea of the biological individual and how contemporary notions of symbiosis and ecologies are really kind of breaking down this species individuality and looking at these effective relationships between humans, plants, animals, kind of everything working in this large sort of cooperative entangling situated within the extinction crisis. So that's the kind of nutshell of what my thesis is looking at.
And that relates to your drawing, obviously.
Yes, yeah. So my drawings, I use biodiversity data gathered from specific locations, and then I create these kind of imagined speculative ecosystems. But yeah, I have a work going into the North Sydney Art Prize opening up in a couple of months, and then I'll be having my final exhibition up at Olsen Annex in date to be confirmed, 2025. Still seems far ahead in the future now, but yeah, just knuckling down and getting that done is my next big step.
And Yvonne, over to you. What's next for you?
What's up next? Tomorrow night there's the Adelaide Perry Drawing Prize. I'm a finalist in that, so that's opening tomorrow night at Presbyterians. Thank you, Presbyterian Ladies College. The wonderful Rick Amore Drawing Prize as well. That's going to be opening up, I think, around the end of March. That's down in Langwarrin, the McClelland Gallery down there. It's a wonderful art prize, and that's going to be on show for 3 months. So that'll be on. In terms of work I'm doing at the moment, I am working on this year's entry for the Archibald. So I've been in the Archibald, hung a couple of times. So Lisa McCune I was hung a couple of years ago with my portrait of her. So busy working away on this year's prize round in terms of portraiture works, because I do a lot of portraiture work as well.
Right. Okay. Well, thanks for talking to us today. So you've got this Draw Space group show with 11 artists, I believe, called Detail, and it opens on Thursday the 7th of March in a couple of weeks, and this Draw Space is at Enmore Road, Newtown. So thanks for talking to us today. That sounds amazing, and I encourage everyone to go and have a look. And thanks for telling us all about drawing, as you've shone amazing light on this area.
Great.
Thank you so much. Having us.
Yeah, thanks, Paula.